Hey everybody, Crypto Mentor 99, and without exaggeration, I am super excited about this upcoming interview with Thomas Perry of SafetyBit. Thomas, thanks for joining me this morning, or this afternoon rather.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
So let me back up a little bit to let the audience know how we kind of met. So I just got back, let's say, well, today's Friday, so a week ago from my fourth cryptocurrency road trip where I drive around the United States, talk to people, do interviews. And before I went on the last trip, somehow I found Thomas on Twitter, and he has a project that you're not going to believe. Okay, it's not an idea, it's not on a sheet of paper that's never been tried. So I got a hold of Thomas and I said, hey, when I come to your area, I think I'm going to be coming up to your area. I would love to sit down, do a face to face interview. Thomas agreed. And then my time got sucked up in Illinois and I never made it up to Thomas. So I said, we've got to talk. So, Thomas, tell everybody about your, literally without exaggeration, your revolutionary, yay, more than an idea, your project, please.
Thank you. Wonderful. SafetyBit is an internet management system, and it's built from scratch. The back end, the front end, and the application portion of it are all built from scratch. And essentially what it does is it replaces the browser, it replaces HTTP messaging, and it replaces web servers. And the reason I built SafetyBit was because of all of the vulnerabilities that we are seeing today, specifically the $1 billion worth of cryptocurrency that was stolen from cryptocurrency exchanges last year, all related to web-based vulnerabilities, not blockchain-based vulnerabilities, specifically web-based vulnerabilities.
So last night we did a little pre-interview. So Thomas, let everybody know the distinction, that analogy that you gave me between the conduit, the internet being the conduit, so people can kind of wrap their brain about the importance of what you're doing.
Right. So what I love to tell people when I first meet them is that the internet and the web are two different things. And the internet is the pipe, and the web uses the internet, and they're not synonymous. And right now, most of what we do is over the web. Almost everything we do is over the web. Streaming movies, your banking, your cryptocurrency, your medical. A lot of it is it's on the web.
Right. And let everybody know again, because again, you really took me to school last night in a good way. I'm like, this dude is smart. Um,
Oh,
and again, you're the smartest guy in the room today. So let everybody know the exchanges that are out there now that you've done your research on. Tell everybody kind of the why
okay.
they're vulnerable and the solution that and the value that you bring to the table.
Absolutely. So the reason that I even started this project was a friend of mine asked me to get into cryptocurrency, and what I did was, and let me give you a little bit of background about myself real quick. I worked for the Office of Naval Intelligence from the U.S. Navy for 5 years. I held a top secret SCI clearance when I worked for them. And then more recently, I worked in the fintech industry where I ripped apart the back-end technologies of banks and credit unions.
Wow.
And really got to see how those worked. And in many ways, the back-end technologies of the financial industry are very different from what you see typically today. So the web technology versus, say, the back-end technology. So just to start, let's understand, or let's at least have a basis of what web tech is. Web tech is your browser, your www, anything that's www. Uses HTTP for messaging, and it uses a web server, and all of those work together. And that's essentially web technology. So what I was finding when I started ripping apart these cryptocurrency exchanges is that, first of all, they were all built in browsers. They're all built in web tech. They all used web servers. They all used web applications, all of which utilized HTTP messaging. Now, in the real world, when we talk about trading and stock exchanges, there is no, so the NASDAQ stock exchange. So the real world example of not using web technology
Right.
is the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ doesn't use a browser, it doesn't use HTTP messaging, and it doesn't have web servers for its core trading platform. It uses something called Ouch for messaging, and the front end application is custom built. So when the brokers submit limit orders, they have three options. They can submit, they can get a status, or they can cancel, and that's all it does. And so their core trading platform only understands Ouch. And the back-end servers are not web servers, they're called Ouch servers. And so that concept takes NASDAQ outside of web tech completely. You literally cannot talk to it through a browser or through HTTP. So the reason for all of this is the vulnerabilities associated with web tech are so insane, and there's so many that are even happening on a daily basis that it's not sustainable. You can't put personal or sensitive data in the cloud or on the web and expect it to be safe. So as an example, JP Morgan, for example, spent $500 million in security last year, and they said their general counsel said that they still feel challenged. Now these people can afford the best of the best. They can afford anybody. They can bring in these amazingly brilliant people who know security really well. But the problem is that it doesn't matter. It's not sustainable. You can't spend $500 million on security every year and expect that to be sustainable. In the cryptocurrency environment, they lost $30 million to a hack after they knew about it. After they knew about the vulnerability. They said, I knew the vulnerability, we knew about it, we tried to stop it, we took measures to stop it, and they still couldn't stop it. It still happened. So they can't stop it. And then, of course, in the medical industry, hospitals have been taken ransom through ransomware and have had paid the ransom in order to stop the ransomware from, to get their files back, to get that personal data. But and that's just one aspect of it. There's millions of user accounts from personal health information, PHI, in hospitals that have been stolen through web tech vulnerabilities, as well as PII information, personal identifiable information, that's just stolen right off these web servers. You look at the Facebook and their 40+ million accounts compromised.
Gosh. Yeah.
You look at Marriott and the 500 million user accounts stolen, or the Oklahoma State Department, where there's 3 terabytes of data that were just open to the public for people to look at, all sensitive data. All of this is all related to web tech and how it's been used and developed over the last 20 years.
Wow. So again, let's back up a little bit, because you just said a ton of good stuff. So I actually had this written down. So guys, one of the things that Thomas just said, and again, he says it so much, he kind of says it super casually, but I'm like, let's just slow this train down in a good way. So one of the things that Thomas said is that JP Morgan, $500 million.
$500 million.
That's what I meant to say. I'm so nervous, right? $500 million. I can't even say it. $500 million on security. Okay. Now, if that wasn't enough, right? You've got hospitals that have sensitive information. And I just think, Thomas, again, what really blows my mind, and I said this last night, we live in a day and age where cybersecurity and sensitive information, that's kind of the talk of the town.
Yes.
Everybody is talking about it. And again, the more I read your, stuff that I always print, it's like, it's unbelievable. So again, I mean this as a compliment. And if you knew me in real life, I kind of joke with people, how did a little guy like you come up with this great idea that's going to change the world, literally?
That's 10 years of effort, 10 years of culmination. I haven't been working on the product for 10 years. I built the product last year myself. But it's been a lot of the real driving force has been historically. I'll just tell you the story, just real quick. In 2009, I used to work for Comcast. I was sitting in my Comcast vehicle looking at $19,000 worth of medical bills, out of pocket expenses, and all I could think was that this isn't going to work. I need to make more money. I need to get more skilled, and so that's when I went back to school. And so I think probably 2 years into school, I realized that I had ambition. And at that point, I decided, that there's things I could do if I just studied all the time.
Wow.
And so that's what I do. I study every day. I study constantly. I'm always reading. I'm always delving into it. But the experience between Comcast and the Navy in terms of compartmentalization, and the fintech industry in terms of ripping apart the back end technologies, and then the emergence of blockchain, and seeing the potentials there, and knowing how sensitive data is and is not protected in various industries, PCI compliance, PADSS, certifications, things like that, help me identify from a high level, where the real problem is. And I think part of the issue has been, these universities all over the world pump out and teach students web development. They teach them Java, they teach them JavaScript. So they come out of there knowing only web development and coming out believing that the internet and the web are the same thing, that they're synonymous, when in fact that's not the case. There's a whole other world underneath the web that a lot of people don't see.
Wow. Again, we talked about this last night, but for our, listeners, so tell us again, I'm not asking for trade secrets. Tell us again, or tell me again, and for everybody for the first time. So you're not going to go, I shouldn't say the typical, but you're not going to go the initial coin offering route in raising money. So people shouldn't think, oh, next week or next month,
Right.
So you want to tell everybody a little bit about that, just so they have an understanding of it?
Sure. I think that part of the challenge in 2018 was recognizing that a lot of the ICOs that were coming out and being developed and invested in were, they were shady in some ways. I was uncomfortable with the idea of the SEC coming down on ICOs pretty hard, and so they seem very hot. I don't want to risk that kind of shadiness or potential perspective. The bottom line is that SafetyBit is designed and built to be something that people can trust and don't have to worry about trusting. And so we're seeking traditional investment. There is such thing as a bad investor as well as a bad investment. So we want a good investor for a good investment.
No, that's great. It sounds like you're really, again, from the short time that we talked last night and even, this morning, like you're just overflowing, in my opinion, with like integrity and wisdom and, and could you give that illustration again that you talked about last night, how, some people, kind of have an idea, raise this money, and then see if it works.
Yes.
And you're like way over here going,
Yes.
well, I'll let you tell that story.
I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to try to build a business from an idea. I wanted to build the product first. And part of that was the idea of how centralized exchanges work and how the cryptocurrency environment is today. And I just felt that if I could build that product, then I could build the business around it later, and I could prove it. I could prove that this concept would work. Whereas a lot of businesses don't start that way. They start with an idea, and then they get funding, and then they build the product. But I already built it. I know it works. It's fully functional. I have a test environment right now. I have white hat hacker getting ready to do penetration tests this next week, and and that's how I wanted to approach it.
So again, I'm going to rephrase that because I think that's really important, because there's so many. I mean, I can't name 10 of them off the top of my head, but there were 2 or 3 ICOs I invested in that don't exist anymore, right? So guys, what Thomas is saying is that some people start with an idea, like you've seen in 2018, 2017, and I've only been around since 2016. And then, they raise $1 gazillion, and then they try to walk it out in real life, and it doesn't work. Some work, some don't. What Thomas is saying, and I'm going to brag on him, he said, you know what? I'm going to start with something that works. I just don't want to do an idea. I want to have like a pen. I want to have a working product, right? Then I'm going to build the business around it. So it's not as if Thomas is here going, well, you know what, Crypto Mentor 99, I've got this idea and I'm really sure it's going to work and I think everybody's going to like it. He's
Right.
got like a ballpoint pen, he's got a working product, and it's not, again, he's not in his basement, writing algorithms or something on his computer going, I hope this works someday. It's already in existence, right, Thomas? And now you're building the business around it, correct?
Yes. Yeah. No, yeah. I did a lot of customer discovery and research ahead of time as well to kind of mitigate that portion of it. To make sure that if I did build it, I wanted to make sure that people wanted it, and if I did build it, I wanted to make sure it was what people wanted, at least to a degree. Um, you know, one of the examples of that is the private key. The private key portion of centralized exchanges are controlled by centralized exchanges. The real world equivalent is, imagine a bank that creates, manages, and holds on to your PIN, your 4-digit PIN for your debit card. You don't ever see that PIN, but you have to ask them to use it. And that's how private keys are working today in the cryptocurrency environment. They hold that key, they use it, when you ask them to, but you have to ask them to use it. In SafetyBit, you control it 100% of the time. SafetyBit has no control over your master key, over your wallet, none of that. It's fully in your possession and fully in your control.
Okay, so last night you had mentioned that your website is kind of under phase
Yes.
two. I mean, it's still working now, and I'm going to put the
Oh, sure.
website in the link below. Could you give us a sneak peek, or however you want to answer it, Thomas, about kind of moving forward, maybe not for today or tomorrow, but moving
Sure.
forward as far as the roadmap and whatnot?
Absolutely. So, the primary issue with a decentralized exchange in the United States, which is the goal is to stand the cryptocurrency exchange up in the United States as the beachhead product. We are pursuing other avenues, but there's a lot of regulatory barriers in terms of standing a cryptocurrency up, an exchange up in the U.S. So in terms of regulations, I have to meet those regulations in order to move forward, which is going to require funding. Um, Now, as far as a roadmap goes, I had mentioned the white hat hackers security penetration testing. I had been unable to find a security penetration tester who really understood that they could, they understand their product. These people are very smart. They understand how their stuff works. They understand how to do penetration testing of web tech. And so the problem is that the system isn't web tech, and so a lot of things like Burp Suite Pro just won't work on it. It just won't work because there's no web server to talk to. There's no certificate to manage. There's none of those things. It's all automated. It's all automatic. So the roadmap portion of it requires the penetration testing because I need that credibility. I want people to see that this thing really is real. It is functional. It does work. So I have that. I'll probably be pursuing several types of penetration testing in the future in order to help solidify that perspective. Aside from that, we are speaking to almost every industry except the government right now. In terms of and I'll be honest, SafetyBit could you could rebuild the government infrastructure with SafetyBit and stop the hacking in the government, but that's another avenue. But we're pursuing medical leads. We're speaking with top executives, former executives of stock exchanges and trading operations to pursue that. So a lot of it is we're really just seeking investment at this point to help kind of launch, whether it's the exchange or whether it's another product. We do have contacts and we do have a dialogue going with a European contact who is very interested in a like a know your customer use case scenario. So there's a lot of that going on. At some point, that'll take off, and then the roadmap will be a little bit more clear. But we're in the early stages right now.
So really, I just kind of thought about this like as you were talking, and again, this is a compliment, okay? This is a compliment. But
Okay.
my dad used to say, and again, I'm dating myself, okay? But my dad used to say, you're a little bit like a duck out of water, meaning you're not normally when someone does interviews on YouTube, right, like me or someone else, someone like you would say, well, we've got an ICO that starts next month, and one token is going to be
Yes.
15% or 15 cents US, and we're going to sell a bazillion of them, and then we're going to
Right.
lock some up. And the roadmap by May of 2019, we're going to be on 3 exchanges.
Sure.
Da 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 da. The drill. So
Right.
in a super positive way, you're you're not even in that conversation at all. And I'm just trying to help some of the listeners who may be going, well, when is the ICO? What do you mean Thomas is raising money and, this, that, and the other thing? Guys, gals, that's why I'm so interested in this. This is not your run of the mill, again, initial coin offering / project that, Thomas thinks it's going to work or hopes it works. It's already working, but it's a little bit, again, like a duck out of water. It's a little bit off the mainstream. Could I say that in a positive? It's a little off the mainstream
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, definitely. Typically, if you were to go to say Sparks Boot Camp out of Michigan, they would tell you, do your research first. Do your customer discovery. Validate your product first. Make sure that it will work, and then build it. And I did that. I mean, I did that portion of it. But you typically, you have your business built first. You have your team. You have people that believe in that part of it, and then you build your product later on. I just didn't want to do it that way.
Sure. So the product, the aforementioned product, when
Sure.
would that be? Again, I get the roadmap and you're having a gazillion, conversations. For the common person that's like, man, this could save me a lot of headache in a lot of areas. Could you talk a little bit, Thomas, about maybe, I don't even know how to phrase the question, but like when the product, if you will, is going to be available to the common man out there?
Sure. So that's difficult to answer, I think.
Okay.
In my position,
Sure.
I finished the decentralized exchange last October. I could have stood it up last October and it would have been functional, but regulations being what they are, and part of me, and my European contact is looking into requirements for standing the server up in Europe. I go back and forth about that. I really want to base it here. I really want it to be something that the U.S. Market can really consume, and it's very different from your typical cryptocurrency exchange.
Yeah.
And of course, the technology, it's radically advanced compared to
Yeah.
what you would see in a typical cryptocurrency exchange, and I don't want to see that necessarily elsewhere.
Sure. So this is, again, this is a worn out phrase, but I can't think of anything else. I mean, you talk about, I remember when I got into crypto space late 2015, and or early 2016, the only words that I heard were disruptive and
Right.
this, and it's revolutionary. And it
Right.
kind of got to be old news. Like everything was disruptive, everything
Right.
was revolutionary, and it kind of
Right.
lost some of the flavor. But truly,
Yes.
what you're doing, that I'm just starting to get my head around reading. Again, I print everything before I interview somebody. You bring the word revolutionary to a whole new level. And again, it's unbelievable. It's wow. You're the smartest guy in the room today for sure.
I don't I don't prescribe to that.
Yeah.
I have my two favorite quotes in the world. One is Thomas Edison, and that is it takes 1% ingenuity and 99% perspiration. And then my second one is Henry Ford, and that is, if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses.
Horses.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say we've been going about 25 minutes. This is really what I would kind of consider an ongoing story,
Yes.
right? This is something that as the weeks and the months go by, that I honestly want to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on,
Yeah.
with you specifically. So Thomas, I always end the interview, whoever I'm interviewing, or if it's just like a casual conversation or with someone like yourself, I always give the person that I'm interviewing, I kind of say like the last word. So is there something that you want to leave with the viewers or the listeners with something about either you or SafetyBit or whatever? Again, you've got the last word.
Wonderful, thank you. I actually believe in privacy and security. That's my bread and butter. I've been doing it for 18 years. The SafetyBit solution, the management systems designed to protect your personal data, and I will prove that to every single person out there. I will prove that it is safer than anything that you can see out there right now in the web environment. I will prove that that it can work and that it will work, and then hopefully I'll see you on it.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm going to mark my calendar for like a month or two.
Do please, whenever you want. I'm happy to
Yeah,
talk.
and I'll kind of bug you and see if there's any updates. But Thomas Perry, I appreciate your parents for raising you right. Instead of being raised by a pack of wolves or something. And I appreciate really just the creativity. And again, you didn't say this. I'm saying this. You were sitting around one day and you're like, you know what? I'm way paraphrasing. I've got some bills. I got to get going. I got to improve my skill set. Again, you didn't say that specifically. And again, my hat is off to you, and
Thank you.
we'll definitely have you back on, Thomas, for sure.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, see you later.